Welcome to Radio Express World News, presented by Vibha Ramesh, Los Angeles, United States. Opening today's report with United States presidential nominee Joe Biden requesting Senate Republicans to refuse to push through his nominee before the elections. News has it that Trump is considering replacing the position of Ruth Bader Ginsburg with another woman nominee. In his address, he went on to say, "Look, I'm not being naive. I'm not speaking to President Trump, who'll do whatever he wants. I'm speaking to those Republicans out there, Senate Republicans, who know deep down what is right for the country and consistent with the Constitution." Meanwhile, President Trump was being lauded for bringing Israel into normalized relations with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, a feat that many thought was never going to be possible. Just over a month since the Sturgis motorcycle rally took place, motorcycle aficionados are getting ready for another. The 14th annual Bike Fest Lake of the Ozarks flagged off on Wednesday and ended on Sunday. The event was witnessed by thousands of people amidst the pandemic, raising widespread concerns over another spike. The pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca divulged information about its coronavirus vaccine trial following extensive pressure to be more transparent in the process of developing a potential vaccine. Meanwhile, in Spain, the city of Madrid reverberated slogans and chants of "Ayuso or resign" in protest to the enforcement of a partial lockdown. Following the record of one of the highest per capita infection rates in the city with over 1,000 cases per 100,000 people, President Isabel Ayuso announced a partial lockdown starting Monday with the hope of curtailing the spread of the virus. However, the decision was condemned by all the 37 affected areas with a population of 850,000 people, many of whom took to the streets to protest the move. The United States intervention and claim to have authority related to UN-mandated sanctions is deplored by European leaders. In effect, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom released a joint statement on Sunday stating that any attempt made by the US to impose its own sanctions on those countries that do not comply with the reimposed UN ones was considered void. The dispute leaves the United States at one end of the spectrum and much of the world on the other on matters of UN sanctions. With several thousand protesters marching the streets of Minsk on Sunday, demonstrators have not yet seen the light of day. In effect, protests in Belarus elevated to a whole new level as anonymous hackers illegally released personal data of 1,000 Belarusian police officers. The move was in retaliation to the suppression of the protests against authoritarian President Alexander Lukashenko. A statement distributed by an opposition news channel read, "As the arrests continue, we will continue to publish data on a massive scale. No one will remain anonymous, even under a balaclava." Moving on, Argentina is battling the coronavirus with one of the world's highest infection rates and deaths, even though the country was one of the few to have imposed a strict lockdown. Even while its neighbors, Peru and Brazil, are recording a dip in the number of infections, Argentina is showing an upward tick, leading to widespread fear and concern about addressing the second wave. Latest sources say that the virus is now spreading to more remote and poorer provinces with lesser medical facilities. In the words of Thomas Oduna, an infectious disease specialist and doctor, this spill to the interior of the country is potentially very dangerous. Now that the virus is spreading to areas where the health systems could easily collapse, we run the risk of the death rate quickly increasing. Over to India. Following a case of disorderly behavior exhibited by 8 opposition members over the agricultural reform bills, they have been consequently suspended from the Rajya Sabha for 1 week, as announced by the House Chairman Venkaiah Naidu. After 4 months of steady rise in infections, the nation registered a dip in coronavirus cases with nearly 5,000 less cases recorded last week than the week prior to last. India stands first with a record of the highest number of recoveries in the world. This means over 4.3 million people recovered from the virus, which translates to 19% of the world recoveries. On Sunday, 4 new coronavirus cases were recorded in New Zealand, 2 of which were imported and the other 2 were community-transmitted infections from Auckland. That said, the community transmission was not related to the outbreak in Auckland but from a man who travelled to New Zealand from India last month. Officials said that he had developed symptoms after his 2-week quarantine and infected 2 household members. Subsequently, a decision on whether or not restrictions will be relaxed will be announced by Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern on Monday. Over to Italy, around 1,000 spectators are all set to attend the country's top soccer league matches that started on Sunday. A day before the game commenced, the country reported over 1,600 new infections. And in Ontario, restrictions on private gatherings were tightened throughout the province in the light of a surge in COVID-19 cases. To this end, indoor gatherings will be limited to 10 people as against the earlier limit of 50 and outdoor gatherings to 25 people instead of 100. On the eve of the 75th anniversary commemoration of the United Nations, 56 former top officials released an open letter soliciting their current leaders to join the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. To this effect, Prime Ministers, Presidents, Foreign Ministers and Defense Ministers from 20 NATO countries as well as Japan and South Korea signed the letter on Sunday, which cited a connotation related to the pandemic as it read, "We must not sleepwalk into a crisis of even greater proportions than the one we have experienced this year." The signatories from the NATO countries included leaders from Japan, Canada, Poland, Slovenia and Italy, to name a few. With that, we come to the end of this news bulletin. Thank you for joining us. Please stay tuned for the next program on Radio Express. To receive Radio Express English news and English programs in your WhatsApp, please send a WhatsApp message, English programs, to 90727 95547. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Radio Express. Thank you.